Two former champions Steve Jackson and Steve Ringer return to FishOMania to attempt what no angler has ever done before, win the title for the second time. Phil Ringer's back for the third time, and last year's third place Ian Dixon returns, hoping for top spot. The crowd have their favourites, but the great thing about this event is that any of the 16 finalists can take home the trophy, and the winner takes all prize of £25,000. Welcome to FishOMania 12. Joining me this afternoon are Sky Sports' Rob Palmer and former world champion Tom Pickering. From 5,000 ticket applications, almost 2,000 anglers fished 16 qualifying rounds to arrive here for the big day. Here's how the anglers' pegs are positioned on the lake. Neither Kieron Rich on 2 nor Phil Ringer on 3, two of the favourites, will fancy their draw, which historically start well, then fade. Steve Ringer didn't want a corner peg and has got his wish. Kevin Baptist has got his dream draw. And on the other side of the corner, Alex Murray's a happy man. Steve Jackson's wife Jan made his draw and he was delighted with 15. On 14, Lee Thornton, at just 18 years of age, is in last year's winning peg.
There is Phil Ringer. His dad, Jeff, is his coach, his runner this afternoon. Is that what we say, Keith?
I think it might be Cookie on Phil Ringer. I'm not sure. I think Steve Cook's his aide on the bank today. Yeah, Steve won it, of course, in 1999 and is very experienced on this fishery and at this event, and he's going to be a great help. You've got to have a different view from the angler. And there's Phil. I mean,
with
there's
number
Steve
7 on the back this afternoon is his brother Steve Ringer. They'll be fighting each other down there at the riverside. He was the early favourite. Many people fancy him, don't they?
He's got a reasonable draw as well. There were people talking about like those long bank pegs this year coming into their own, but the high numbers.
And Steve Jackson fills that number 15 shirt, and he is one of the favourites. He's been a runner-up here before in '95, 10 years ago. Keith's first ever FishOMania, and also won it in 2001. Well, he looks cool, he looks calm, the nerves will be jangling in a moment as we prepare to start FishOMania. We join our Master of Ceremonies for the afternoon, Nick Holling.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the ToteSportCasino.com FishOMania 12 from the beautiful Hayfield Lakes near Doncaster. At £25,000, it's the richest prize in the sport of angling. Well, the competitors are ready, the spectators are ready, the fish are ready. So, gentlemen, all in.
Well, that hooter will quicken the pulse of the anglers and the supporters who are here in Doncaster at Hayfield Lakes this afternoon. It could come down to weather, it could come down to the wind, it could come down to tactics. Keith Arthur, it may just come down to an element of luck, maybe.
Well, that hooter goes and my pulse quickens as well, because it is such an exciting event. The first few minutes, the anglers will be laying their table, if you like. They'll be getting their bait prepared, where they're going to fish. Just saw Steve Jackson there cupping in some bait with his pole for accuracy. Where Phil Ringer is, on the low numbers, and Clayton Hudson there, we can see him peg 1. I would lay off the feed a bit there. We can see from here there's lots of fish up there. If you put feed in, the wind's going to blow it away from there and take the fish with it. So I'd be a bit circumspect about feeding there, but I'll be looking to catch early fish, just cruisers that are looking for that first bite of the day.
Tell us about the tactics, Keith. Some will be fishing off the poles and we're going to the middle of the lake, some will be fishing close. Yeah,
I think at the start most people will try and fish quite long. Very interesting there, I can just see Kieron Rich fishing the pole. And that, to be honest, is a bit of a surprise. Last year, the fish in the early numbers, in those early pegs, were at range at the start. And we can actually see fish topping in that area now. But maybe Kieron's been here practicing, he's a top angler. He's obviously got a plan. Dave SWAIN there, and Dave's got experience of this lake and of the FishOMania final, although when he fished it, it was on a different lake. You see he's got a lovely ripple, and I know people said there were a lot of big fish around that area.
down at Lakeside. The first fish to be caught from Marc. Keith.
It's a very early start. We used to wait a bit longer for fish, aren't we? But it looks like a proper fish as well. That corner peg, there's a big barley straw bale in the corner, and they can be fish magnets. They're put in there to clear algae, but the fish just love them, and that's a decent fish.
That's very healthy, isn't it?
Yeah, that is. That's a kilo and a half, I would think. He'll be happy with that. And it's interesting to see he's fishing with a float, so he's not fishing right on the surface. It looks like he's fishing something like half depth, and it's finding the depth that the fish are at that's the vital thing. What a great start for him, though.
He said he's looking forward to winning it. He said he thinks he's going to win it. He admitted in his biography beforehand that he's a little bit of a showman. He's got his family behind him this afternoon. His biggest regret is not playing in the first team for Tottenham Hotspur, but this afternoon could be his big day. Marc Jones there on peg 5.
Let's have a look at what they're angling after. The winner will take the FishOMania trophy plus a cheque for £25,000, and the biggest single fish of the main event is worth £2,500.
The hottest at the moment is on peg 5. Marc Jones, who's had a sensational start to the afternoon. You saw him catch the first fish of the afternoon live a few moments ago. And he was a prolific goal scorer. He's a prolific fish catcher, Keith.
He's certainly catching a few. Is that a barbel? That's a big-eyed. That looks like a big-eyed. They don't often get caught, those. They're a bit circumspect, the eyed, but he's got that straw bale, and as I said before, they're a magnet. What happens is they ferment in the water, and of course they're releasing sugars and all sorts of stuff, and the fish just find them attractive. Plus it's cover. Looks cool, doesn't he?
He looks as though he knows what he's doing. He, as I said before, he's a former footballer, but he did actually own his own fishery, so
yes, he does.
I'm sure he practices every day. It's quite a serene afternoon here in Doncaster.
There's Steve May with the fish. The qualifier he won, his son Andy was third in. That's not a bad fish for a start either. He's called it fishing shallow on the pole. That's usually the way to win FishOMania. And you can see the tension he's under. Just look at his hands.
I'm expecting to win. If it was down to effort, I would have won 2 weeks ago because I've been practicing it for the last 2.5 months. Know the water pretty well now and certainly feel confident.
Well, Marc Jones speaking before FishOMania started. He was right to feel confident because he has been prolific in the opening half an hour of FishOMania. Just how well he's done we'll find out in a few moments' time when we have our first of our half-hourly weigh-ins.
First fish we've seen caught on a rod, I think. That's Roly McENEANEY.
Peg 11, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if is he fishing on the surface, Tom? Have you seen, or is he fishing the feeder? Because he's a real feeder man, Roly,
I think he's fishing the feeder, and I'll be perfectly honest with you. With when we've got this time, feeder, yeah. I think we'll see a lot of the tactics that we've seen in the past, which will please both me and you. We won't see as much floating pole. No. We won't see as much where they're just going to cast out lumps of bread until the last hour, where they might be going for the specimen fish. We'll see more conventional,
proper fishing,
feeder tactics, and maybe even a waggler. But conventional waggler.
Let me just tell you then, we do this every year. We go further. There are people tuning in this afternoon that don't know about angling. So when you're talking about your wagglers,
yes,
when they get the wagglers out, what are we talking about?
We're talking about just a normal peacock float. There's a straight peacock that is fixed bottom end only, so you can sink the line under the surface.
Not a whole peacock, just one of its feathers.
We'll be talking about wagglers and bottom feeders and all kinds of things this afternoon on FishOMania 12 here at Doncaster. What a great time as well to bag some fish just before we have the weigh-in.
It's the best start I think we've ever had.
It's easily.
And I'm absolutely convinced it's because we've got more wind, we've got more activity on the water, and it's blowing in a better direction.
Yeah.
I'm really pleased about it. I think it'll be best FishOMania. I really do.
I know we were talking last night, Jacko was talking about possibly 40 kilos needed to win it, which on this lake would be amazing.
It wouldn't surprise me one little bit, to be honest with you, if there were 40 kilos. The only thing I think about if there's 40 kilos, there'll be somebody run away with it. And I'd soon have a fishing match where 25 to 30 kilos wins it, but a lot of anglers are in contention.
Marc Jones there again, Keith. He's had 2 big uns. That's a little un, but when he has the weigh-in...
There we go.
Right on cue. Let me just explain to you, every 30 minutes we will have a weigh-in. What they do, they weigh the fish that have been caught in that half-hour period. Of course, they go back here in the lake after they've been weighed, And the culmination of the fish, and the biggest bag of fish during the whole of the afternoon, wins £25,000. Well, it has been a wonderful start to the afternoon to one or two of our anglers. Steve May down there on 8 has had a good start, but I suspect that Marc Jones is going to be leading when we have our first weigh-in in a moment or two. Well, we've heard from Keith Arthur. Let's go down and hear from our Lakeside reporter, Bill Arthur.
Marc Jones off to an absolute flyer here in this corner. Peg number 5, he said it could well work in his favour, and my word, it has. Off, as I said, to a flyer with 3 lovely carp, but worryingly for Marc, they've been shrinking in size since then. There's a perch in there as well, and but certainly he'll be overjoyed with the start he's made down here. Now, Andre Grandjean, the NFA official steward down here.
6 fish to weigh in here.
Sorry, say that?
6 fish to weigh in here. It's a nice hide, 1 carp, 2 carp.
I think there's something else in there, isn't there? Just having a look, or is that it? That's certainly.
That's it.
That's it. So let's have a look what Marc's. Now then. Oh, there is another one. I was right. It was hiding in there, little tinker. That could have been crucial. But at this stage of the proceedings, half an hour gone.
3 kilos, 470. 3 kilos, 470.
3 kilos, 470 is the start for Marc Jones.
We'll be keeping you up to date with exactly how the anglers are doing down there, bringing you the fishing live. Sometimes the slowest start, but we've had some thrilling finishes over the years. A reminder, we will be going to around 5:10 this evening, and around 5:15, somebody will walk away with £25,000. Remember, nobody has won FishOMania twice. There are a few that have tried many times. There have been fishermen out there that have tried through 4 or 5 qualifiers to get here. These are the lucky men, the men who've got the golden ticket for FishOMania in Doncaster. Intense concentration. Of course, the tradition, Keith, is you get thrown in the water fully clothed if you win it.
Most people now go involuntarily. They tend to take a nice long run up off the end of their platform as far as they can go into the lake. It's just, you need it to cool down, don't you? I mean, it's so tense. We're as tense as anything up here. Imagine what it's like down there. Imagine what it's like when you hook a fish and it starts to fight. Can you imagine? Oh.
Keith's tench in the water are tench.
And some big carp as well, Rob, but they're not showing yet, and that's why Marc Jones is clear at the top of our first leaderboard. There are 9 anglers still to catch, but there's plenty of big carp for them to have a go at in this particular fishery.
They're laying their table now, they're getting things prepared. Maybe Kevin Baptist's idea of leaving the corner alone isn't a bad idea, because could it be that Marc Jones will empty his corner, then what'll he do?
Yeah.
He's not put any feed further out. There's Steve Ringer with his first fish of the competition.
I don't think they'll bat an eyelid yet.
No.
I think it's miles too early.
Yeah.
I think they're all like you just said, but I worry about Kevin Baptist leaving it while last hour, wind blowing into it.
Yeah.
I think I'd be having a look a lot sooner than last hour.
I'm going to test Rob's memory now. Who won it last year?
Rob Hitchens.
When did he catch his first fish?
Oh, at about 3:30, I think, wasn't
The
it?
4th weigh-in.
Was it really?
That's right,
Exactly
yeah.
right.
Oh, bad though, wasn't it?
Well, as I mentioned before, we've had
There you go.
many a great finish.
Bravo.
Steve Ringer was the favourite. He didn't feature, did he, on the weigh-in board, but he will do now. That's a great start. That is Steve Ringer on Peg 7. Dad Jeff is around, and brother Phil is also out there. And it looks as though he may have got on the leaderboard as well.
Cookie couldn't be giving him any closer advice, could he? He's right in his ear there, Steve Cook.
Steve Cook is called Mrs. Ringer.
Mrs. Ringer, that's it.
She's such a big part of the family. And if you don't know, Steve Cook is a former winner as well. How important is the coach? Is the person that's whispering in your ear during the course of the afternoon?
He's got to have the subjective view. He's got to be the one that can tell what's happening around the lake accurately, because you can make a big, if you think you're 4 or 5 fish behind, if you get bad information, you can do a move that's maybe too positive, whereby keeping on what you're doing, you could continue to catch and catch up. If you get well, Tommy knows, Tommy coaches teams.
I think everybody's different, every individual's different, but I wouldn't want Steve Cook sat there on my lap talking to me like that.
Not when I'm playing a fish. No.
But he might be happy to deal with that. All I want him to tell me is where I am at leaderboard and how far are the leaders in front of me. So I've got to make a decision, or between us talk about making a decision and what we've got to do. But I wouldn't want him chirping in my ear all the time. I want to concentrate on my fishing.
You see, he's keeping the rod low and pumping. As he's pulling the rod back, he then winds forward. He's keeping the rod low so the fish stays up near the surface, because it's safe there. There's no snags on the surface. And he's just going to try and steer it out the way. It could have gone over the next angler's line, actually. It's gone way over to his left.
Feels if he's playing it like this, well, it looks a good fish.
Yeah.
Keith, Tommy, thank you very much for keeping us up to date with what's going on at the moment. Marc Jones is leading. There's no keeping up with the Joneses at the moment in time. The big number 5 from the south of the country, who's now living in the north of the country, top of the leaderboard.
I'm expecting a good day, a lot of excitement. I'm expecting to be nervous. I'm also expecting to catch some fish and hopefully win. But to be honest, it's just the whole occasion of making the final.
Steve May there, who has been trying for years to get to the final of FishOMania. And at the moment, he's sitting very confidently in second place with a total weigh after the first weigh-in of 1.74 kilos. Well, we have a talented young man who's in his first FishOMania final this afternoon. England under-21 international, only 18 years of age. His name is Lee Thornton, and he has caught his first fish.
I've just spent a week with young Lee on Junior World Championships, and he is a cracking young angler. For 18-year-old, he's got a fantastic angling brain, and I know he were in the fish off last week, and he spoke to me about it, and he was really excited. And I'm really pleased that he got through. I know him and Jeff have become good friends because of it. That's a big fish, that.
It's a big fish, isn't it?
That's Dave Swain.
It looks big on Dave Swain's lap, and he's a big lad, isn't he?
Oh, he's been here before 10 years ago, hasn't he? I mean, he was in short pants, was young Lee Thornton, when Dave was here competing in 1995. He's the one that's got the massive support this afternoon.
Wouldn't it be ironic he caught the smallest fish there in 1995? That might be the biggest fish.
Well,
Here's DIXON who caught the biggest fish last year.
Peg 16, Keith, one of the fancied pegs. Ian DIXON, who was one of our favourites at the start, has also got off the mark.
There's fish being caught everywhere though, Rob. It's so much busier than it has been in previous years. The weather conditions, it was very cold 2 weeks ago. We've had a lovely mild week, a good blow. The water, the oxygen content is superb.
As soon as we got a wind blowing into that long bank, I said it would fish the best it's ever fished consistently, and it's proving that already. And it's just the best wind at Ayfield to blow in that long bank in them teed numbers. And the only unfortunate thing for that, you only 1 and 2 are ruled out, and maybe in peg 16, which everybody's raving about. I wouldn't want to be on peg 16 today because I know the wind will be across them. And it is fishing better on the long bank, and I think it'll be a lot better match. We'll see more fish and more people in contention.
Phil Ringer there. And that's a ghost carp.
He's got 2 nice fish in there.
He has got 2 good,
yeah.
and I don't know if you noticed, Tom, he's fishing a feeder, so he's fishing on the bottom. So there's fish being caught up in the surface, there's been fish caught in the corners, there's been fish on the bottom. Like you said, they're everywhere.
So it's a better match. And I want to fancy peg 3. I mean, we've actually got probably 2 of the best anglers in the field, Kieron Rich and Phil Ringer on 2 and 3 are 2 pegs I wouldn't fancy.
How do you feel about Steve Ringer's peg 7?
Not sure about that. I would, because it's on the long bank, I think he'll have a chance. I wouldn't want to be 2-3. I will be soon to be 7.
Well, Phil Ringer there has got the support of Dad. Steve, of course, has won FishOMania before, but Phil has never won it. When Dad was asked who he wants to win, he said Phil, and Phil has got off the mark, and he also has the bonus this afternoon of having alongside him Jackie Beltrow.
Now, Phil Ringer has just got 2 very large fish in the bag in the last few minutes, and very substantial they are as well. Phil, can I just have a quick word with you? Is it a relief to get off the mark in that way?
Yeah, it was. I hooked one 5 minutes before I got that one, and I lost it right at the net. And it's just nice to get one in the net. So yeah, I'm fairly happy now. I've got 1 or 2 fish. So.
They were quite good, weren't they, those fish? Both of them carp. I mean, how much do you think you've got there?
I think I've got about 4 kilos. So, we'll see if we can get 4 or 5 kilo an hour. We'll be happy.
What's your plan today, and how desperate are you to win this afternoon? You must feel it's going to be your day soon at FishOMania.
I think everyone fishing, today is desperate to win. Probably just me, just that little tiny bit more, because I'd love to follow in Stephen and my dad's footsteps, really.
Great luck this afternoon, and 2 fish in the bag so far. Good fish as well. We'll be back to you a little bit later on.
Well, Phil Ringer there, who's got brotherly competition this afternoon with Steve also on the bank. And Steve, as we mentioned before, is one of the favourites. He was runner-up in '96, he won it in '98. Steve has been in 6 finals, but they're hoping in the Ringer family that Phil, in his 3rd final, can take the title of FishOMania this year. But at the moment, there's no catching Marc Jones after the first weigh-in. Marc was 3.47. We're, about 6 or 7 minutes away from the second weigh-in of the afternoon. I'm not quite sure whether Marc has managed to bag any in the last 30 minutes or so. He currently leads with a catch of 3.47 kilograms this afternoon.
Be a good event, I'm sure it will be. It's for everybody, every class of angler. There's a lot of really experienced anglers, as you see, Kieron and Steve Ringer and various other talents there. They're Phil, but they're there to be beaten and to be shot at, which there's a lot of anglers here what can, probably do that.
Steve Rothery, a local lad, comes from Goole and has fished in this area for quite a long time. He's currently in 5th place on peg 4 with a tiddler, 0.7 kilograms, but as Keith Arthur said, it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint this afternoon in FishOMania 12. Well, we're just a couple of minutes away from the next weigh-in. Of course, at the moment, Marc Jones is way out in the lead. The former footballer who's a pretty tidy fisherman these days. I bet if you've just tuned in, we have, as I said before, got you hooked as we throw all of our toys at FishOMania this year, giving you the very best coverage. He's had a rather quiet half hour, but he got off to an absolute fly kick, didn't he?
Yeah, it's one of those pegs, you can catch fish from these corner pegs, and that's a fish he caught earlier. That's another eye.
That's another big eye. I mean, they're a kilo plus that.
That's right. When they first went in, they were small fish, and they've really grown the eye. They're a member of the chub family. They're not an indigenous fish that have fished in this country.
Remember when they were 3 ounce then?
Yeah, and now they're, that's over a kilo. Fish, I would think,
every fish now is over a kilo.
As we mentioned, we're throwing everything at it this afternoon. We'll have slow-mos and we'll have the cameras coming over the top. And that was a couple of minutes ago, Marc Jones caught that fish. We've got so many fish being caught now, we're having to fly around the lake. This is our teenager, as Brynlaw described him. He's the Wayne Rooney of the fishing world, Lee Thornton.
We saw him catch a big fish a little while ago, and this is another one, and it's a serious fish.
Yeah, it's a big fish, that.
How important to him will it be to get it in that bag and get it weighed before the weigh-in in about a minute's time?
Puts pressure on, doesn't it?
It does.
Puts him on leaderboard, it'll give him a bit of confidence. An 18-year-old, he's quite a nervous lad anyway. Like I just said earlier, I spent a week with him, and he's a very good angler. And for 18-year-old, I promise you, we're going to hear a lot in the future about Lee Thornton.
Well, he's got it in. He's ready to weigh it. And that noise means that we are about to have our second weighing of the afternoon. Remember, after the first weigh-in, Marc Jones on peg 5 was way out in the lead. But it's a culmination of how many fish you get during the course of the afternoon. The last weigh-in is going to be around 5:10. Dear me, that's 4 hours from now. 4 more hours of fishing. Let's go down and find how things are going down on pegs 1 to 4. Jackie Beltrao is down there.
Well, thanks very much, Steve. Now, Phil Ringer, is looking forward to this weigh-in because he is off the mark. He's had 2 very good fish in the last half an hour, 2 ghost carp. One was around the 6-pound mark, one a little bit smaller, perhaps around the 4-pound mark. About 70% of the fish in this lake are substantial sized fish, over 5 pounds, and he's probably got 2 of them in this net just now. So the stewards go in to get the fish out of the keep nets and put them into... Oh, he's a slippery one, and he's a very lively one as well. So the first one into the net. These are Phil Ringer's fish on peg number 3, both caught in the last half an hour. Two lovely ghost carp. And could this be enough to take Phil Ringer into the lead in his third FishOMania final? And the weight is?
3 kilos 450.
3 kilos 450 for those two fish for Phil Ringer. So a very good half an hour's catch for one of the favourites.
Well, Dave SWAIN has taken a lot of stick for the fact that the last time he was in FishOMania he got the smallest fish of the day, a tiny little perch it was. I think it's going to be a different story today. Andre, let's see what he's got this time, because it looks like a lovely carp in there, and this could be the biggest fish of the day so far. That's what these supporters who are behind him have all come from Stockport are confidently expecting. Look at this beautiful fish, and his fans reckon that's well over 3 kilos, and Andre will now show us. And ooh, that looks... Andre gives the news.
It's not far off 4 kilos.
So we'll look.
Slightly over.
It's over 4 kilos.
4 kilos. 20 grams. 4 kilos, 20 grams.
4 kilos, 20 grams. Smallest fish last time out. Alongside him, Marc Jones on Peg 5 has been catching really consistently, but probably with that one fish, Dave SWAIN is certainly pushing him close. 4 kilos, 20 for Dave SWAIN.
Lee Thornton's bag here on Peg 14. Two together first, and then we'll see individually whether we have a big fish contender on Peg 14. Here we go. This is for the first two fish. 4 kilos 760 is the total.
Thank you, Brent. Well, things are beginning to hot up here in Doncaster at Hayfield Lakes. FishOMania 12. Fantastic start to the afternoon. Possibly Dave SWAIN is in the lead. We haven't completed all of the weigh-ins at the moment. Dave SWAIN with the biggest fish of the day at 4.2. If it stays like that, he's going to take home £2,500. Well, alongside me, I've got Keith Arthur, Tommy Pickering, but at the moment, Wendy Locker, who has previously won the biggest fish in FishOMania in 2000. How will Dave SWAIN feel about that?
I'll be quite pleased. You know, he'll be quite happy to have won 4 kilo in the net, you know, and he'll be looking to get another, you know, and when you've got one like that, sometimes you think, oh, you know, just let the match finish, you know, and let me get the biggest fish. If you're not in contention, you know, it can seem a long match. He'll be happy.
Can you hold on, Jack? Well, Dave will be holding his breath now, because a couple of moments ago, Marc Jones, who was the leader after the first weigh-in, got all of his fish in the bag. I think the helpers, the weighers, are probably more nervous than the fishermen this afternoon. Don't want to lose one, don't need to escape back into the water. That's a good catch, isn't it?
It is as well, and you said he slowed down.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what,
there's more.
That's right, there is more. You look at these fish, they're all on very, very specially made unhooking mats. So they're not on the ground, they're not touching the ground at all. You can see they're really thickly padded mats that are wetted before the fish go on them, all for fish welfare.
I don't think he's been trawling this afternoon, hasn't he?
When you think about these I'd have been in this lake a long time now. Like I said, they were like 2 and 3 ounce when they were first put in. Has it gone over?
It's gone up. It's gone round past 5.
Yeah, it's nearly 6. That. Yeah. But almost, you get one of them now. They're almost like a carp.
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
They're a small carp. You know,
yeah.
3 pound fish is like catching a small carp, and they're easy to catch.
You land them half the time.
Half time.
Talking about the carp, we've got several kind of species of carp in there, and they're the big fish that swim towards the top of the water. And what you're saying is that he's going for the smaller fish. He's going for a bag of smaller fish rather than going for the big carp.
He's just sitting in that corner, and carp should move in there as well. Yeah. But he's catching what's there. Obviously, there's a shoal of hide there. They're a fantastic fish to catch, as Tommy said. They don't fight as hard as carp. They swim around in bigger shoals than carp tend to do. And if he can keep them there, and he can build up a weight. The first ever FishOMania at Hayfield Lakes, we saw Kevin Rose Phil's win, with 30 kilos odd, 60 odd pounds, fishing right in the edge.
That's right.
And he hardly had a carp, did he?
Nearly
Hardly
all
had a carp.
He just had
roach and skimmers,
and scar, and that's all he's doing. He's fishing his chop worm and caster, and what he's trying to do is, when float goes on, he's catch a fish, and he's not particularly bothered at this stage. What it is just keeping his scent on leaderboard, keeping his scent up there, and if carp move in, that'll be a bonus. But he'll be feeding another line for carp somewhere, just in case, where his runner, I'll keep him informed, you're in front, you're in contention, in case it goes away and he's got to make a decision to go for carp to catch somebody up.
At the moment, it's everybody else playing catch-up. Marc Jones is still a clear leader. Lee Thornton's had a brace of carp, and Dave Swain's made first grab for the big fish money. And there are still 4 anglers without a fish, including former champion Steve Jackson.
If Steve's playing, it'll be a big fish.
Yeah.
He's taking his time.
Wendy, you've been down there before. You've been on the bank. Tell us a bit about the psychology.
You've just got to stay with it and believe in your plan, really. You know, because you can't panic. You've just got to think. You know, there's 5 hours to every match. Just you know, keep going, really. And when I qualified, there was no chance of winning, really. I'd say so. I just went for the big fish and concentrated on that. You know, but they've just got to stay with it, because last hour on here, you catch £50 in an hour on here if they really settle down. So anything can happen, really.
Well, the biggest man, I think it could be fair to say, has caught the biggest fish of the day so far. A big carp on peg 6 caught by Dave Swain. What was your catch again, Wendy, when you got the biggest?
I think it was 4 kilos 600, I think.
Yeah, what about that, yeah.
Nothing in comparison to yours now.
Not a bad one, though. He'll be quite happy.
This is my 6th final for FishOMania since I got through the first time in, I think it was about 1996. I've made it my job to sort of try and get back as many times as possible. 6 times is no mean feat, and I've won it once, so I'm not complaining.
So they say when you've got somebody who's in your team that's particularly good, you've got a ringer. Well, we've got 2 ringers by the lake this afternoon. Steve Ringer has been in almost half of the FishOManias now over the years. He was the favourite, the hot favourite before the start of the competition. But after about an hour and a half, he is currently in 10th place. Well, he may win the £25,000. There's a big rivalry for the biggest fish of the day. I think this is Ian Dixon, who a couple of moments ago on peg 16 took in what is known in fishing parlance, I think, Keith, as a whopper.
If that's Ian Dixon's fish, it's not going to be 4 kilos.
No.
It might be just over half that. It's certainly not 4 kilos. That won't challenge Dave Swain's fish. Lovely looking fish, lovely ghost carp.
So that's not with the challenges, it definitely not.
That's probably as big as the one he's got already.
Yeah,
probably 2 kilos and a bit.
Yeah.
We're just a couple of minutes away from weigh-in number 4. Peg 13 is not an unlucky peg, it's a lucky peg for Alex Murray, because he's starting to catch now.
Lovely fish, that. That was nearly 2 kilos, I would say, that one, Tom, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely 2 kilos.
Well, Dave Swain has caught the biggest fish of the day so far. That single fish has got him in the reckoning any second now. We're going to have the hooter for weigh-in number 4. Oh, there we go, right on cue. Will it be Marc Jones, who at the moment is the top of the leaderboard? He was the 8-1 at the start of day's play. He's had 2 fantastic half hours to weigh-ins so far to put him right up there at the top of the leaderboard. Right, let's go down to the lakeside. There's been a lot of activity on the first 4 pegs, I think particularly on peg 4, where Steve Rothery has been pretty active. Jackie Beltrao is with him.
So a really, really lovely carp here, huge. And this is really going to shoot Steve Rothery. From Gaul originally, now living in Leeds, right up that leaderboard. So nervous today. His wife Alison's here watching. She said he was an absolute nervous wreck this morning, and this is the biggest event he's ever competed in. But this is really going to settle the nerves. How much is that?
4 kilos. Oh, sorry. 30.
4 kilos 30. for Steve Rothery. So that is really going to move him up the leaderboard, and those nerves will certainly have been calmed.
Well, thank you very much, Jackie Beltrout. This is how he landed the big one. This could be his £2,500 catch, Steve Rothery from Gaul.
Now, it's not quite, Rob, because I saw 3 little fish going alongside it, and Dave Swain's is 4 kilo 20 on its own.
Yeah.
So they've got to take those 3 little ones out and weigh it on its own. I reckon that fish will be 380, 385, something like that. Yeah, not quite.
Not quite.
Close, but no coconut.
Steve Ringer was one of the early favourites. Many people fancied him this afternoon, but he's had a quiet start, hasn't he?
I'll tell you what, though, you watch him, he is just a fishing machine. He's playing that fish, he's putting the pole down and feeding at the same time. He's still fighting the fish. He'll have another blow in a minute, he'll pick his catapult up, he'll feed. He won't give his peg a moment's rest. He's got those fish there by intensive feeding, and he's going to keep on feeding those fish, even though he's fighting one. That could be a 25-gram fish for all we know. That could be the one that makes a difference. But he's still, the feeding is even more important than that fish.
Rob Hitchens is with us, who won FishOMania last year. Rob, a little bit like Steve today, you got off to a slow start, didn't you?
Slowest you could possibly get off to. I wanted to leave after about 2.5 hours. But thing is here, different conditions to last year. A lot of people have been catching on bottom.
Yeah.
And last year we're all up in water.
There's an half a big fish, you know. I'll tell you, this is a big, big fish.
He gets fishing one of the fastest angles I've ever seen,
Yeah.
Steve Ringer. If he's playing it, it's either only because he's got 1 or 2 in net, or it's a big fish. Maybe,
He's using substantial latex elastic there, Tom, as well. That's not the white hollow stuff. That's serious gear he's got
Feeding
on there.
again, look.
Out comes the catapult.
That's more
feeding.
important than the fish, that, almost. He'll be more concerned about feeding his peg so he don't lose them out in his swim than losing that fish.
And he, although he's playing it carefully, he's still being very positive with it. He won't be nervous because it's his only. We've already seen him catch a barbel about 750 grams. He knows he's going to land this fish. He's not thinking about losing it. It's the last thing in his mind is losing it.
I was going to say, because we have seen over the years some of the less experienced anglers who get the big fish and they're so desperate to get it in there. Yeah. We have seen that the guys lose it, haven't we? But he's experienced, but you say he's quick. How much do you balance out speed with accuracy and getting it in there?
You do it with experience, and you look at the experience of this bloke. He stood up, he's given it all the pressure he can, up to the tension of his tackle. He knows what his tackle will do. He's caught so many big fish. He knows what his gear will do.
How would you rate him amongst commercial fishery anglers?
There's a few, isn't there? There is a few, but at all methods, I think that him and Will Raisin are a level above everybody else at all methods. Yeah. I'm not talking about specific things, but if it comes to, they might be on the feeder, they might be on the big wag, they might be on whatever. Yeah. Maybe he's even in front of Will because Will doesn't fish things like the bagging waggler or the method because they're not used in his area. So probably as an all-rounder, he is probably number 1.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, you mentioned experience there, guys. This is Steve Ringer's 6th final, and now the audience participation behind it.
And that won't be far off of 4 kilos, I'll tell you.
Fish that.
And it was hooked in the mouth, Tom. He
hooked in the mouth and kept feeding.
Yes, that's
just
right.
Done it all. That was a perfect example of what to do.
That's right.
It was a perfect. If you could video that and show people who fish commercial fisheries, that is a perfect plan. That.
Steve Rothery on 4 and Ian Dixon on 16 have leapfrogged Lee Thornton into 2nd and 3rd, but it's still Wakefield's Marc Jones a clear leader. Steve Ringer has that big carp in his net and that'll push him up the charts, but still 4 anglers have yet to catch.
It's just a special day. It's a day like you don't come across in any other of the matches, any of the competitions. You got all the qualifying rounds and then you've got the big final and everything's like based around the big final and it's just such a good day out.
Ian Dixon, who's made the long journey from Hampshire to join us here at the FishOMania final in Doncaster. He came 3rd last year, had a good start, finish third. At the moment, he's in third again. How he hates that position. He'd rather be second. There could be a chance of first. He's not had a bad afternoon so far. We're not too far away from having the weigh-in, or the fourth weigh-in of the afternoon. Lee Thornton seems to catch a fish just before the weigh-in, doesn't he? He's got this great record.
It's such a crucial time to catch as well, because it really puts pressure on. Notice Ian Dixon's not so hungry this year. Do you remember he had that big burger last year? Needs a bit of moral sustenance.
And there is Lee, who's in fourth place at the moment, just behind Ian Dixon, who's trying to get a fish in before the hooter.
Fishing his candle method. That's just an ordinary wax candle with the wick taken out, elastic put through the middle, so it floats on the surface. And because it's white, the fish will come up and attack it like it's a bit of bread, and there'll be a pellet next to it, and that's the result.
Oh, he's managed to get it in just in time, miraculously. Well, he'd be delighted that he's just, I mean, it was literally like a fraction of a second, wasn't it?
It'll make a difference of a position or two on the leaderboard. Now, it's crucial.
Well, he was in third, so he's got another 2 kilos that we know of there to go on, so he's moving up the leader. He's in good position, really.
And there is the difference. Ian Dixon at the second place. Lee Thornton back in third, but Marc Jones has put another 2 kilos on the scales. And that good carp has put Steve Ringer into the top half. There's not enough fish being caught for those down the board, but there is still a very long way to go.
Well, you just said, Keith, that one fish could change it this afternoon, and Dave Swain has had the biggest fish of the day, and that's obviously his tactics. He's done it again.
Looks like another big fish he's got there. He's keeping his pole in the water because inside the pole there's a length of elastic that's used as a shock absorber. And if you keep the pole low, it lets the elastic do all the work rather than bend the pole. That's what it's there for. It's the shock absorber, it's the bungee, it pulls the fish back. It's not that big a fish, I don't think.
Bound's looking good, Swaz.
Dave Swain at the moment is in 7th position. He didn't get anything in the last half hour, but it's healthy looking.
Yeah, a couple of kilos, yeah.
Meanwhile, over there in the hot pegs, the teen pegs, on that peg 14 is the teen, the 18-year-old Lee Thornton, currently in third position with a catch so far of 6.99. Well, he's been fishing 10 years. He may only be 18 years of age. He's actually been at it longer than some of the other competitors this afternoon. Remember, he's 35 years junior to the oldest competitor this afternoon, Steve May.
It's a lovely mirror carp he's got there as well. It just came up and surfaced. It's a lovely mirror carp.
It'll be lovelier in the net.
Well, it will as well.
It's funny with carp, Keith. Sometimes you can catch like a double figure fish and they come straight in your net.
Yeah.
Then you can catch one 4 or 5 pound that just never gives
It's a big
in.
fish, that.
And they're normally... That's lovely. Well done, Lee. They're normally commons that give up as well. The commons they wallow a lot, don't they? And I think it's all to do with what way they're facing when you strike. If they're facing towards you, you just lead them like a dog on a lead. Yeah. If they're going the other way, they rip that elastic out and you've got to pull them back, and that's the hard stuff.
It's the most well-known fishing competition in the country, definitely. It's probably more prestigious than the World Champs, which is what I've just been fortunate enough to be involved with as well. In terms of, well, it's the best competition you can get in, so I'm very pleased to be here.
Lee Thornton, who only reached the final after a playoff with Jeff Moores of Stoke. Well, he edged it into the final and he's had a fantastic debut in FishOMania, currently in third place with a catch so far of 6.99 kilograms. He's up there with a great chance. He was 7-1 at the start of day's play. So this is the view from above. These are the pegs that we always expected to be the hot pegs. 13, 14, 15 and 16. Well, talk about hot pegs. Peg 15 has been an ice-cold peg for Steve Jackson at the moment, but in fourth place at the moment is Big Al Murray on peg 13. Lee Thornton is on peg 14. He's in third place. In second place is Ian Dixon, who is second place on peg 16.
Tell you another reason why the fish go in here, Rob. The people at this end of the lake will be feeding odd bits of floating bait, and the wind's in this direction. So all those bits of floating bait finish up in these pegs, and the fish will follow those baits, obviously in a clockwise motion around the lake, and they'll finish up in the hot pegs. And last year it was these pegs here. It was 13 and 14 that the fish were in lake. Lee Dixon sat there eating a giant hamburger, came to 3rd place. Rob Hitchens in 14 won the match. Today Lee Dixon's caught some fish early. Ian Dixon, Lee Dixon, Arsenal on the brain, see? Ian Dixon's caught fish here on 16. Peg 5, he's got this bale in the corner here, and the fish are moving close to that bale. Bit of sanctuary. Those bales have never been in these called. It's a big bale of barley straw used to dissolve the algae, to get rid of the algae in the lake. And the fish are just concentrating. There's a little bit of cover. Not the carp yet. It's all been eyed and perch and roach and skimmers. But if the carp move in there, that could be just well. End of story.
Right in thinking that you were saying that Peg 16 last year caught nothing in the last 2 years.
They've caught next to nothing. I know Dave Wright blanked on it. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but he dry netted on it. We sat here and watched Roger Marlowe have fish swimming all around his pole and not feeding. And that's Marc Jones with another fish.
Easily recognisable, Marc, isn't he?
Yes.
Not a perch.
That's a nice perch, that is, yeah.
Just putting every fish into his net, don't matter what it is.
And he's putting enough of them in to maintain a good lead, although Lee Thornton has had another couple of carp to jump back to 2nd spot. Dave Swain's had a 2nd decent fish to go to 4th place. Still no joy for Jacko, and Kevin Baptist's dream draw is becoming a bit of a nightmare.
Well, there's a picture of concentration. Come 5:15 today, it can be a picture of celebration. If our leader, Marc Jones, can take the winner takes all.
And here's how Marc Jones has got to that position. The numbers on the bottom are weigh-ins, and on the left-hand side is the weight. And as you can see, it's all down to kicking off well. And he's caught something for the scales every visit.
The great thing about him is, though he's concentrating on his fish, and though he has people behind him cheering him on, he's always got time to talk to Bill Arthur.
Well, Marc, it's been consistent catching for you, hasn't it? A great start, but it's been steady away since then.
It's dried up to what I was catching earlier on, but the only good thing is that the whole lake seems to be fishing in different today because of the pressure. In practice, they've been taking a lot of biscuit off the top, which that's what I've been feeding, and I think they will come on that later on if they don't obviously come on stronger like they did at the beginning. So I'm not unhappy because obviously I'm catching fish, but I'd like to be catching a bit more than I am at this moment in time.
That's right. Dave Swain next door has since you had your carp early on, has landed a couple of big ones. Is there any risk that maybe they're drifting away from your corner and you're left with the perch and the smaller ones?
Well, obviously there's a risk there, but I think later on the day, I think all swims will come back to life again. But during practice, this sort of time of the day now, we've had our lean spell, and I expect to start catching again in the next sort of like 20 minutes to half an hour. Otherwise, it's going to be quite crunch of a match. But everyone's set the stall out now, and it's a case if your name's on it, you're going to do it, and if you're not, then you're not. But hopefully I'll start getting a few rises a bit later as we go along, and we might get a few fish off the top, because that's what we've been doing a lot on, catching a lot on in practice. But at the moment, with the crowds all that around, I think the fish are shying away, which you can't blame them, can you?
Oh, it's a lovely fish. Look at
Kieron,
this.
That. 2 foot deep. That is Kieron Rich from Dudley. He's had a quiet afternoon so far. Kieron is currently in 11th place. He'd caught less than a kilo in the last weigh-in. But he's getting off the mark. He's been desperate, Kieron, to get here to the final. He actually went through 4 qualifiers, 2nd, 5th, 16th, and then qualified in his 4th attempt. And Alex Murray from Somerset, who was the 4-1 joint favourite at the start of the day's fishing, is currently in 5th place, but there's some activity down on his peg.
from Somerset. He's certainly not an outsider then, is he?
Cider.
Yeah. Oh, God.
For those at home that didn't get that.
Yeah. he's a very, very good angler, Alex. He's good at catching big fish, and this looks like a quality fish. Yeah. And he's close. You know, him and Lee Thornton, that's a bit of a battle in that corner.
13
we've concentrated a lot on Lee, but Alex has still been catching. There's another, well, that won't be, that's 2.5 kilo, I would say, Tom.
Yeah. 13 or 14 pegs are coming strong again out of now.
Well, at least those pegs in the teens that are catching the fish this afternoon. There's been plentiful fish all around Doncaster this afternoon. On the adjoining lake, well, the man who's always hitting bullseye, the man who is a legend in the darts world. Do you recognise that?
Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, he's a great legend, Phil Taylor.
Bench.
Phil the Power, 12 times world darts champion. Looks like he could make a bit of an impact in the fishing world as well, doesn't he?
He's certainly not as seasick as he was when we fished the Marlin World Cup together in Mauritius. He was ill all day. No, he's better on dry land, and that's a super fish.
Was that a name you were dropping then? Was it?
You know.
A name you were dropping in the ocean?
Oh, yes. Well, I'd see, but they're doing it wrong. What I'd have someone else holding the pole and Phil throwing the bait.
Yeah.
Be accurate every time, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You know.
Can't lose.
It's a team event.
You couldn't not lose, could you?
You'd have to keep moving your float, wouldn't you? You'd break the bristle.
Bullseye.
Well, back to the rail lake, to the rail deal on peg 12. Kevin Baptist, who was in 12th position, less than a kilo, 0.8 at the last weigh-in. It was 33 to 1 last night until he got peg 12, and then the odds came tumbling down to 10 to 1. Well, he's starting to catch.
He fancied a corner. He likes fishing on the bottom. He's not a man who fishes shallow. He likes fishing with paste. He likes fishing with pellets. He wants to get those fish concentrated on the bottom. It's very deep, Hayfield Lakes. If you fish out at Hayfield, it can be too deep. But if you can get to fish in the corners where you've got maybe 4 or 5 feet of water, it's much, much easier, especially fishing heavy baits like paste.
At what point do they change their tactics?
You don't. No, you can't. You've got to make a plan from the start. You can have a plan B on the go, but you can't suddenly say, well, none of this has worked, what shall I do now? Because you're not going to compete.
No. And the other thing is some of them now might start thinking, it's a bit early yet, but they might start thinking, another half hour I'll try and catch the biggest fish. If I can't win the match, I'll try and catch the biggest.
Nice big floating bait out in the lake.
Yeah, that's what they'll do.
Well, 5 to 3. Maybe the start of the football season, but this is the FA Cup final of fishing.
And this is a clear indication that the fish are feeding far better in some areas than others. The peg numbers along the base and the kilograms along the left-hand side show clear peaks, and Marc Jones peg 5 is the epicentre.
I don't think Steve Jackson's going to be bothering the stewards behind him again. Poor old Steve, who was one of the heavy favourites, is way down at the bottom. One of 4 of our competitors who hasn't managed to catch anything so far this afternoon.
Yeah, it's beyond my comprehension. He's not done anything wrong. He's got every bit of experience. It's one of those days. I'm still sure it'll come right.
Let's go back down to Lakeside and let's hear from Jackie Beltrap.
Thank you, Rob. Well, this man was so disappointed, Kieron Rich, one of the favourites, as you said, to win FishOMania this year. Didn't fancy his peg. He hadn't even registered a kilo on the board until now. He just caught this, well, wonderful-looking fish, really. A carp. About 20 minutes ago now. Had a little bit of a struggle to get it in, but not too much. And this is certainly going to boost his chances and also boost his confidence, because he was sitting there feeling kind of dejected, almost like he was flogging a dead horse with this peg, and he's losing the fish. Well caught. You just earned your money then, didn't you, by catching that fish? So he's in the net. And this is really going to just lift the spirits of an angler, just to have a fish like this when you've really caught pretty much nothing all day long. He is expecting the fish to come onto this peg. He said he's worried that it might happen after the final hooter at the end of the match. Can we just have that weight again?
2 kilos.
530.
2 kilos 530, that will certainly lift him up the leaderboard.
Well, we're down with Peg 12 and Kevin Baptist, who's finally got a weigh-in since the first weigh-in that he had, which was not that grand. It's a lovely mirror carp that he's got in that net. And somebody just commented about carp being out of the water, and for those of you that don't know, an interesting fact is that carp can actually stay out of the water for about 17 hours. They can actually stay out of the water 17 hours, very much like tench. And if you see a river going out and you see mud on the bottom, very often tench will bury themselves under the mud, and then when the tide or when the river water comes back in, they surface again. So here we go. We are looking at 2 kilos. So 2 kilos, 220 for Kevin Baptist at this weigh-in. I believe Bryn's got something to weigh in too.
Indeed, that is the case, Liz. Yeah, it's Alex Murray on Peg 13 who could push himself up into second place on the basis of what we see in the next few seconds. Because there are a couple of fish in there. There's a perch, which won't add much to the total, but there's a decent-sized carp in there as well, which you'll be seeing now. And between the two of those fish, this could really help Alex Murray begin to make some progress upwards. It's gone quiet elsewhere. It's been no different on these 4 pegs, and Alex Murray over here is the only man with anything to show for his efforts. Let's have a look at this one.
One kilo 940.
So just short of 2 kilos there for Alex Murray, and that will really help his efforts to climb the leaderboard.
Little change at the top of the board, mainly because 2 of the main catchers in that half hour are way down the list. Alex Murray's the only real mover in the top 8. He's up to 3rd. Kieron, Rich and Kevin Baptist moved to 1st and 2nd on the B list, but still no joy for the fishless 4.
Marc Jones, who come 5:15, the way things stand, will be on the podium in the gold medal winning place. Really, there's no silver or bronze today because it's the winner who takes all, the winner that wins all of the £25,000 prize that you would get for becoming the FishOMania champion 12 in 2005. But not a great deal between 2nd and 3rd place, only, well, less than half a kilo, a third of a kilo really, between Alex Murray and Lee Thornton. And there's 1 fish still between 2nd and 3rd place between Lee Thornton and Marc Jones, and they've been trying up a little bit for Marc over the last hour or so. He got off to an absolute flying start this afternoon.
And there's Dave Swain fighting another fish. He's already in the lead for the £2,500 prize for the biggest fish of the tournament, and I don't think that one is going to challenge it. But it will do him no harm in the overall weight stakes.
Well, it is a wonderful afternoon. Well, as I say, people have been here since breakfast time this morning. They're barbecuing, there are motorhomes here, there are caravans that are in the lanes adjoining the lake last night. There's a fair over there as well. They're watching the junior matches, the ladies matches, the celebrity matches, and there are thousands here watching fishing live. Some don't think it's particularly a spectator sport, but I'm sure if you tuned in this afternoon, as we said before, you will have been hooked, and all eyes at the moment on Marc Jones, the big number 5, the former number 9 centre forward, played for Tottenham Hotspur, but now he's pretty much a professional fisherman. He owns his own fishery, and though he hasn't been catching the big fish, and no, I don't think at the moment he's going to earn the £2,500 for catching the biggest fish of the day, he has been reeling them in constantly, hasn't he?
He said another, it looked like a little golden orph there, strangely enough. We were talking about those going on the missing list. It looked like a little orph, and he really needs, it's nice that he's still catching and he's just stretching his lead a little bit. It would be really nice if he'll need a couple of big fish.
He's just gone back down side, hasn't he, as well, so he's given that a little...
He's given it a rest, and he's just caught that orph down the side. And I think he'd be happier if he was catching some of those big-eyed like he was at the beginning. Oh, because if he's catching little fish there, the carp ain't there. No. That's for sure.
And there it is, graphically illustrated. Marc's rested the areas of his peg that's produced the high points on that chart, but he's still managed to put something in the net every time. Will he hit those peaks again? Just 4 more sessions to go, and we'll find out.
Fishing's always been big in my life. I've fished since I was a child.
I've always fished competitively, even from the age of 14. I was always fishing in matches as opposed to just catching a few fish, so I've always fished competitively. It is my life. I mean, my wife has been part of it as well. You know, when we got married, they did an archway of fishing rods. I mean, the whole of our marriage has revolved around my fishing.
Steve Jackson, who, well, most of the anglers this afternoon, that is music to their ears when they hear the hoot. They can go into their catch, find out exactly how they've done, and the heart misses a beat. But poor old Jacko has gone wacko this afternoon because he has not caught even a stickleback. He's had a terrible old afternoon. The winner back in 2001, he's been runner-up as well. But this afternoon, a big, fat 0 for Steve Jackson, who is on 13th position currently. But time is running out for him. I don't think the £25,000 is going to be going back to the Jackson household all the way down to Somerset. Well, just before the hooter, if we can go back in time, there was yet another catch for Marc Jones, who's managed to catch in every half hour. Okay, he's not had the largest catch in every half hour, but he has been consistent. That's why he's got a current weight of 11.79, and that is why at the moment he could be taking the £25,000 kit.
Good as well, and this is a better fish than he's been having recently.
He's gone back outside.
Yeah.
You listen to you, Keith.
If only everybody did, Tom.
Yeah.
Well, he'll be happy. They'll be having the weigh-in any second now once they've got the fish in the net. Let's go down to the lakeside, and there's Bill Arthur.
And Mark's decision to give that corner a bit of a breather and then return to it certainly paid off with a very impressive tench. Well, impressive in the context of things at the moment, because not a lot being caught around here at the moment, and this could be quite a significant catch for Marc. It has been quiet, but he has been, as we've said, catching consistently, and he's been just making do with the smaller fish, and then along comes something like this, which is going to boost his tally, no doubt about that. And he's been keeping Andre busy here. So let's see what this... Oh, there's another one. There's 3 in there now. Is that right? 3 in there? Let's see what this one is.
1 kilo 760. 1 kilo 760.
It's another kilo and 760 grams for Marc Jones. He's just piling them on. Bryn.
Well, you're right, Bill, yes, because I think while we've got another catch here for Alex Murray, who again is catching consistently every half hour, it's a barbel he's got in the bag, just the one fish in there, and he guesstimates around about a kilo perhaps in weight. If that is the case, as we'll see in just a moment, then it would mean that Marc Jones has perhaps increased his lead at the top, but it would also mean Alex Murray would be moving right behind him into second place. Let's have a look.
830 grams.
It's just short of a kilo as it turns out, but it should be good enough to push Alex Murray on peg 13 up into second place.
Not quite, because Ian Dixon holds that second spot with 10 kilos plus, but he's still over 3 kilos behind Marc Jones, who's led from the very start. Will those carp keep coming in the high numbers and turn the event on its head?
I've been in it every year from the first year. It's just if you get the right peg on the day, you can win. If you just, the luck's got to be with you.
Well, once you've been in FishOMania, you really are hooked. There is Dave Swain, who may not be in pole position to take the £25,000, but I think I'm right in saying he's still caught the biggest fish of the day, and for the biggest fish you take home £2,500. He's still got a chance. He's currently in 5th place, and he caught half a kilo catch in the last half-hour weigh-in. Over on peg 4, I do believe we've got another catch currently in 6th place. Just behind Dave Swain is Steve Rothery. There's a lot of smart money, Keith, went on him at the start of the event.
Local angler in a corner that he fancied. He wanted to be there, And that's a good fish that he's got there. You could see he got it. He was nice and confident. Got it into the side and it swam out. And he had to put extra sections on to keep in touch. The interesting thing is, normally we sit up here and you can see fish cruising on the surface. We've not seen that today. Whether it's a little bit of north that's crept into the wind or not, I don't know. But they've just not been as visible as they normally are. Yet there's still fish to be caught, and they seem to be being caught in sort of an intermediate distance. They're not right on the top, and unless you're in a corner, they're not on the bottom. This fish has been caught shallow, but maybe in the margins. It may have been caught shallow against the bankside vegetation.
I know he's fed down there, hasn't
yes, he
has.
has.
A lot of bait down that side. He said, he says last hour he's expecting him to visit.
Well, David, the last weigh-in was what? He was about 5 kilos behind the leader, Marc Jones. An hour to go.
2 fish.
This is half of
and
it.
He's got one of them now.
Is he going to come down at the moment? What do you think? Top 5, top 6, top 7? Sorry to put you on the spot like that.
Well, it's down. I'd say that below Steve Rothery, they're struggling. They need one more fish, and Steve Rothery's 4 fish behind. Now that's a big ask because Marc Jones is still catching, and he's catching now bigger fish.
And the way he's fishing, he'll probably keep.
Yes, he'll keep topping that up. Maybe Steve Rothery's too far behind, but this in his net, you know, he's 8 kilos now.
I don't think any of these top 5, 6 are out yet. Nowhere near. I think we're not even into the last hour yet.
Historically, it's proved that the last, as Tommy keeps saying, the last 5 minutes can make such a difference. The last half an hour can be everything. Steve Jackson could win in the last half hour.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, last 2 years we've been jumping out of his chairs, haven't we, with 5 minutes to go,
and there's nothing to say we won't be this year.
I can see it happening again. I really can.
Well, Tommy did suggest before we started today that there would be a lot of fish caught, and that has been the case. Remember, at the moment, Marc Jones still leading, Ian Dixon just behind him, but he's 1 big fish away. Alex Murray in 3rd place. Lee Thornton, the youngster, had a small catch, but at least he was on the board in the last weigh-in. He's only 18 years of age. He's in 4th place. Dave Swain in 5th. Steve Rothery in 6th with just under 6 kilos of fish. It's going to be a crucial final hour. It's like Christmas Day for him. What's he going to unwrap here?
We all thought he'd lost his fish then because he's trapping the elastic. He's using hollow, very, very stretchy elastic, and he's using a lighter elastic because he's hoping for carp, but fishing fried. And he's just tried to trap it with his hand to control the fish, and the fish has gone. And he couldn't let it go slowly, so he had to let it snap out of his hands. And we went, oh, and we thought the fish had come off, but it hasn't. He's still attached.
I don't like that, me, when they grab the elastic.
No.
I do not like that. I do not recommend that to anyone.
I'll only do it very occasionally if a fish is foul hooked and I want to stop it from going away.
Yeah.
But if it's a big fish, no chance.
Absolutely. It's vital for his afternoon. He's got to get this in to stand with a chance. If it is the one that he tells in the bar later that got away, then so's the chance of the 25 grand.
It could be 25 grand swimming away if he loses it. You know, if he doesn't, it could be 25 grand in the bank.
This is Steve Rothery, who was one of the favourites at 6-1. His odds came crashing down over the last 24 hours. A lot of smart money has gone on him. I believe one punt's put £500 on him.
That's a bit more. Never mind the pressure of winner takes all. That's the pressure of somebody else's money is riding on you. You know.
He'll be the man that's out there sweating by the lakeside at the moment. Whoever put that smart money on him.
He's obviously got too much money, I think.
I fished a match on the Warwickshire Avon one year, and I had a big crowd of people around. They would do a good peg. I had a big crowd of people around, and they would say, "God, Keith, our money's on you." And I thought, "Oh, lovely, that's good." but I did pay them back, Tom.
Oh.
It was in the days when I could fish.
Did any of them get you a pint? No.
I got that big pint. Do you remember?
I remember.
The big pint in that big club, the big glass, when it was sponsored by a brewery.
Was it 3 pint? 3.25 pints?
I don't know. I couldn't manage it all.
No. Tell us anything.
It's important that Steve bags this fish. It's not too long now before the next weigh-in. I'm sure that is what his mind is on. Weigh-in 8 is
he knows how important
maybe 4 or 5 minutes away.
Oh, don't let go under that stanchion. Not on telly.
Good job, and that's a big fish.
Well, he's got a standing ovation.
That's a whopper. That's 3 kilos.
Yes,
that's
3
not
kilos.
far off of 3 kilos, that fish.
What did he have before?
He's just under 3 kilos behind the leader, Marc Jones. This could really open things up this afternoon.
No, he's 6 kilo behind. That could make him 9 kilo odd, that fish. Now he's 1 fish behind.
Oh, and he's wound up now. Come on, Steve.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, he's not in the top 3. The top 3 at the moment is Marc Jones, Ian Dixon, second place. Only, well, just around 3 kilos, as the chaps have been saying. A fish between them. Alex Murray still in the frame. Alex is currently in 3rd place, hoping to win the £25,000.
Alex is here, 13, 14, 15, normally come on strong. We're expecting those still
Somebody
to throw
to have
some
that
fish.
half-hour.
Steve Jackson is still blanking, but we're expecting him to come up with fish. Back up here, we've got Steve Rothery in 4, fishing into this corner, and you've got Marc Jones in 5, fishing still into his straw bale. They've still got time to.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Anybody, those top 5 can still win it.
The next weighing will be quite crucial because 1 or 2 of them have got a fish or 2, haven't they?
The next weighing will get people twitchy.
Yes.
That's what this weighing is going to do. It's going to get people twitchy.
Yeah.
Some will know they're now out of it. Some will think, oh, he's catching me up. And they'll be twitchy.
Some of the anglers at the bottom now will start thinking, I can't win this. I'm going to start fishing for a big fish.
For this to be the biggest fish, it needs to beat 4 kilos 02.
$3 kilos 390.
That isn't big enough though, 3 kilos 390, but it will take him further up the leaderboard.
Well, Marc Jones still plugging away, still catching, nothing on the par of Steve Rothery's, but there's a hide in there which is probably just going to add a kilo perhaps to Marc's running total. I think that's all there is in there. Yeah, it's all that's out there as well. Make an England fielder of that man yet. Oh, and that's no, there was a little perch in there, I think. Here we go again.
1 kilo 340. 1 kilo 340.
Every little helps for Marc Jones.
Or maybe the way our cricket team are doing, maybe I shouldn't draw comparisons, but I suppose what Marc Jones is doing is going for a number of quick singles, isn't he, rather than going for the 4s or the 6s, hitting them over the boundaries today.
Very good analogy, that.
Very good.
Very much. Well, he's not far away now. In about an hour's time, he could be stuffing into his wallet £25,000 and dousing the crowd in champagne.
And he's got a fish on as we speak, yeah. Laying a fish down. It looks a decent fish as well. He's really concentrating. Look how slowly he's feeding his pole back. That's to keep the elastic as close over its head as it can, to guide it rather than pull it. It's difficult to pull fish. You want to try and make them swim towards you, encourage them to swim towards you. And that's what he's doing. You want to try and keep the fish under the end of your pole if you can.
Today he is the fish doctor, isn't he? He's gone into the minds of the fish.
Just caught a doctor fish. That's what we call tench. See?
Yeah.
It's very interesting that you're saying there haven't been many tench this year.
Yeah, it's been a very bad year for tench all over the country.
Got red eyes, haven't they?
They are, yeah, maybe.
So old red eyes at the back.
Yeah, maybe it's that. Let's go. Good call.
Good fish though, this one.
Well, you're hearing the voices of Tommy Pickering and Keith Arthur there. We've been joined in the studio now by the 1999 winner, Steve Cook. And Steve, you can tell us from experience, I think your year it went right down, you thought, to the final hooter, didn't it?
Yeah, actually my fish was flying through the air as the hooter went into the landing net. So at the time I didn't know whether it was I needed it. I thought I did. And with it having no playing time after match, normally in open matches we have 15 minutes after the hooter to play and land your fish. In this competition, the hooter goes and it has to be in your net. But I didn't know I needed it.
This is his biggest fish. This is his biggest fish of the match so far.
Yeah, this is a carp.
It's his biggest fish of the match so far. This will be the first fish he's had over 2 kilos.
Oh. And with an hour to go,
this could be the one that uncorks the champagne for Marc Jones, couldn't it?
He'll want to see this fish in his net a lot. He really wants to see this fish in his net.
But guys, you can tell me if you're on the other pegs, and I know he's a popular guy in the bar last night, and when it's all drunk, but you want to see him drop it in there, won't you? You want to see him slip through his hands, won't you?
No, not at all.
Never.
No, absolutely not.
Not you,
all.
but the other.
No, absolutely
well,
not.
I love
at
the camaraderie.
No, it's just true. You wish you were better. You don't wish ill on other people.
I've never wished a fish off for anybody in my life, and never will.
He's under a lot of pressure at the moment now. He's in lead, but he's catching a few fish.
He's had a day's
there's a lot
fishing.
of pressure on.
He's had a real day's fishing. Even those people that are close to him have caught odd fish here and there. He's had a day's fishing, Steve. His float's been going under virtually since the start.
Yeah. He's fished a strange match, to be fair. I know whether that's how it's fished today, but before today's match, I want to give him a chance of winning it, doing what he's doing. It's working out for him.
Do you know, I spoke to a couple of people this week that have said there's been a lot of fish in peg 5 and 6, big fish. Now, whether he's fished for big fish or not, I don't know, but he hasn't caught them. He's caught everything that swims.
That's right.
And now he's got his first biggish fish.
It's interesting, before it started, Kieron Rich came up to me, who was a good friend of mine, and he said, what do you think to me peg 2? And I said, you ain't got a chance. And I said, the only chance you've got is if 30 to 40 pound wins it, and if I were drawn peg 2, that's what I would fish for. I would fish for 30 or 40 pound and hope that kind of way, and he said, no, I can't do that.
No.
And I understand why, it's not made that way, but that's a big fish, that.
That's his biggest fish.
Yeah. But when you look at the leaderboard with an hour to go, and 26 probably, what's he got? 14?
He's got 14, that takes him to 6, that's
17 kilo.
17 kilo he's got now.
That's right.
That's 40 pounds.
Nearly 40 pounds.
He's hanging on to that one like he's going to be hanging on to his wife in about an hour's time, isn't he? I'm sure that Sharon and his daughter Victoria and his son Nathan will help him if there isn't a dramatic comeback from Ian Dixon, Steve Rothery, who are behind him. That could be the one.
And to confirm that, Marc Jones still leads, followed by Dixon and Rothery, who caught a decent carp from the other side of Marc Jones' corner. Maybe it's carp o'clock for those two. They certainly seem to have deserted the high numbers. Phil Ringer leaves the top flight, and the fish list 4 fish on regardless.
Well, there are still plenty of fish being caught out there. Steve May, the oldest competitor, he's finishing strong. He's got some staying power, the 53-year-old, his 12th attempt to make it to FishOMania. And he's on the banks, and he'll enjoy that one. He's currently back in 11th place, but that's a fairly decent fish that the big number 8 has got in his net this afternoon. But he has to look 3 pegs along. Let's see the man who is in the top position at the moment. Marc Jones is 4.5 kilos plus ahead of the nearest rivals, and very, very soon Marc could be crowned as FishOMania champion 2005. Well, on the small lake, there's big sound. The biggest applause we've had in a couple of hours. I'll tell you why, because the man who was in last place, popular man, a big man, has finally caught a fish. Steve Jackson has got one out of the water.
And what a cheer he's going to get when this fish comes in.
There you go.
There it is.
And he's got...
If I know Steve Jackson, he'll put it in his net, turn around and bow.
Probably will know Steve. I bet this moment he's thinking 45 minutes. If he looks at his watch, I think I've 45 minutes left, I can catch 40 pounds. Oh, he missed it.
You won't miss it next time, I promise you. There it comes. Got it.
Gotcha.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, missed
no.
it.
Oh, I was wrong. Tom,
that's
camera shy.
Write that one down.
First time ever.
His eyes, it's his eyes, Tom.
Age does it every time. When we get to his age, we'll have the same problem.
I've got too much confidence in his ability.
Nice fish there.
That's a contender. He's had a quiet hour or so. He didn't record in the last weigh-in, and Lee Thornton is currently
getting on for 3 kilos.
Back in 5th place, yeah.
And here's Steve May with his second fish on the trot. Maybe the tide's turning the way of the 4 Steves in this match. Or maybe the prediction that the fish will feed later in the match is coming true. He's fishing that candle method again. And the fish doesn't seem to want to make an appearance in front of the cameras. Steady pressure and a steady nerve. And there it is in the old onion bag. Even the hands have got a bit steadier. It's a good ghost carp, that.
I'm expecting to win. If it was down to effort, I would have won 2 weeks ago because I've been practicing it for the last 2.5 months. Know the water pretty well now and certainly feel confident.
Well, he was prepared. That was, well, just under 24 hours ago. He said he was going to win, and it looks as though he's going to win. We're at the, almost at the penultimate hooter of the afternoon, the penultimate weigh-in. It's still water at the moment. It could be champagne in about 35 minutes' time. And yet again, he's got something in the bag. Let's go discover the damage to the others with Bill Arthur.
Well, it's not going to be enormous damage, but it's just going to be an accumulation for Marc Jones, and I think there's a decent, fairly decent-sized carp in there, and 1 or 2 other bits and pieces. Marc sticking with worm out there, and just persisting with something that's been very successful for him so far today, and just keeping his nose in front of the others. What's in there? Steve May further up, it has to be said, has been catching well, but this looks like another useful total. Let's get around here. Andre, here we go again.
2 kilos, 340. 2 kilos, 340.
2 kilos, 340. Marc Jones, great atmosphere in the corner here. People getting behind Marc Jones, and he's solid as a rock there. And just another 2 kilos, 340 to add to his tally.
Some catching this afternoon, but Lee Thornton, who's had a pretty confident afternoon, 8.8 at the previous weigh-in, 5th place, just before the hooter, managed to bring in a fish.
Again.
He's
done that a few times today.
He may not win it today, but at the age of 18, he is certainly one for the future, isn't he?
Yeah, I've told you, I've just spent a week with that lad, and he has got a fabulous fishing brain. He works things out himself. He's going to be a good lad for future.
We say he's 18. He has been fishing since he was a nipper.
That's a big fish.
8 years of age.
That looks a big. That looks 4 kilos. That fish, I'll tell you. When I just saw that turn under the water there, that is a serious fish.
When you say serious fish, he didn't have a smile on his face.
It didn't. No, nor did Lee.
Happy about being caught.
Yeah.
That could completely change it.
It certainly could.
Oh,
That's a big fish.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, biggest fish.
2.5 grand in that net.
Yeah. Whoa, and that's thrown it wide open.
As we said before. It's a carp, isn't it? It's a goldfish. That is made of pure gold.
And we think he's got another one in his net.
Yeah. I reckon that's 4 kilos, that fish.
I reckon that's going to push the biggest fish, definitely. Now that's made a match for the last half hour, that.
If he's got another one in there, 2.5 kilos, 6.5 kilo going on to 880, that's 1530. We know that Marc Jones has got 17.
Oh, he's got a smile, he knows his match.
Well, it's been a great half hour for Lee Thornton. Big fish first, chaps. Let's have a look at the guy that's just come in there. 402, remember, is the biggest we've seen thus far. Just over 4 kilos is our biggest so far. So let's have a little look if David Swain is to be knocked off top position with that. Not quite by the look of it. Not quite by the look of it.
3,450.
There you go, 3,450 for that. So that's not the biggest fish, but this is a decent catch, and this will really help Lee Thornton, and could make things very exciting. He's 5th at the moment, but he could really leap up the leaderboard with this. Let's have a look.
Five kilos, 560.
5 kilos, 560. His biggest catch thus far then, and that will really change things around, you feel, at the top end of the leaderboard at least.
And changed it around it has with DIXON and ROTHERY fish list. The challenge to Marc Jones seems to be coming from Lee Thornton, unless of course Steve May, who's leapt to 7th spot, gets a few more carp on floaters. Steve Jackson's catch sees him off the bottom, leaving 3 anglers still to register a fish.
We're approaching the final 5 minutes of FishOMania 2005. Keith, just remind me, what happens if you get a fish on the hook and the hooter goes?
It has got to be in the net before the hooter sounds.
Right.
So in other words, not before the end of the hooter, before the beginning of the hooter, it must be in the net.
In the net?
Absolutely. Not in the keep net, in the landing net.
Right.
It mustn't be swimming around in the water. If it's swimming around in the water,
Gotta be out of the water,
it doesn't count, yes.
He's trying, he's thinking, he's concentrating. He's maybe had his attention caught by something that's happening elsewhere.
I'll tell you what's happening, shall I?
Go on.
Clayton Hudson on peg 1 has got a fish on.
Yeah. And the significance of that is Clayton hasn't caught anything in the 4 hours and 55 minutes of fishing so far, but the man with the ponytail just has.
And it's only little. And
he's got a tiny little perch, and it's the biggest cheer and the biggest round of applause of the whole day.
The whole lake's applauded that.
Even
half an ounce it was.
Exactly. It's,
fantastic.
As I'm often told, it's not size that matters.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful that.
Well, they've blanked so far in the final half hour of FishOMania 12. If it stays like that, Marc Jones is going to be the champion in the most sought after prize in English fishing.
Concentration there, look at the concentration.
4 minutes now. 4 minutes.
4 minutes. It's getting very, very close now.
How long does it take? If Lee gets one in the next minute, come on, what is the minimum? What is
4 minutes?
He wants to hope it's 2.88 kilos. He doesn't want it to be, he wants it to be big.
You get one in
win.
there and it's 3 kilos and you feel it. How long does it take to get one? 45 seconds, a minute?
He will just put. I had the same situation when you don't know how big it is.
Yeah.
It's just your pole goes and you don't know. And it was just a matter, that fish was going to come my way no matter what. Either going to break me or I was going to get it out.
Yeah.
And he'll have the same scenario. In his mind, his bank run will be telling him that you've got 2 minutes when he hooks a fish, and he's going to have to pull harder or quicker to get it. But he's got to get that fish.
He's got to get one on first. And
he needs to hook one first. He really needs to hook one first.
It's gone weird, hasn't it, this last hour and a half? The fishing's gone really, really difficult.
Well, it's gone very, very quiet. Well, he's looking out there.
Look at his chest, look. Oh, you think he'd just run from box to box and put it in the back of the net, wouldn't you? His chest is pumping there.
Well, if you're just tuning in, the significance of that is Marc Jones. He may be our champion angler this year, but in a previous life, in a previous sporting life, as a teenager, he was at Tottenham Hotspur. He was a goal scorer, a centre forward. He used to knock them into the back of the net. Well, today constantly has got them into the net. He maybe hasn't had the biggest catch on every hour, but he's got a couple of kilos here, half a kilo there, and it has culminated in 7.23 kilos so far. Lee Thornton had a great final half hour, just over 5.5 kilos. And we're in now to the final 2 minutes of FishOMania 12. Now or never for Lee Thornton.
It is now.
Got to go now.
I reckon he's got 25 seconds to hook one. If it's anything after that, if it's outside a minute, 1 minute 15 seconds, he's struggling. I reckon.
I don't think he can get a 3 kilo one in that length of time. I think
your float. Don't look over there.
Well,
they're hurting for different reasons.
Yeah.
What a great experience, though. You could see last night he had the buzz as he was rubbing shoulders in the bar and in the restaurant with, you know, so many top anglers. First time he's been here, 18 years of age, England under 21 international, wants to fish for the England team, and today certainly won't have harmed his chances. He's had a great afternoon, great experience for Lee Thornton, but he is going to end up in second place behind Marc Jones.
His eyes twitching.
Yeah,
you know, the crowd behind him, I hate to say this, and I apologise to the late Mr. Woolstenholme, but they think it's all over.
It is.
They think it's drinking
celebrating.
He thinks it is.
It is.
And maybe it is now.
It is, that's it.
Well.
Oh, he's got one. Lee's got one.
Oh my word, they said they thought it was all over. It may not be yet. He's got 35 seconds to get this fish out of the water.
Oh no.
Oh my goodness, his knees must be knocking, his heart must be racing.
He's got
his
to grab the
brain will
elastic.
go into overtime. What's he going to do?
He's got to grab the elastic. He can't play this fish on the pole. He's got to get that elastic in his hand, and he's got to pull.
Clear it up. He's got to get the fish out of the water before the hoot. He's going to get in the net.
He's got to be in the landing net. He's got 10
my word.
seconds.
No, there's no chance.
He's got to get that elastic in his hands.
No, he's lost.
Too late.
This is the most dramatic, disappointing finish to FishOMania ever. Oh my word, your heart goes out to 80-year-old Lee Thornton, and right on the hooter, Marc Jones has done it.
Well done, well done.
That is, we've had some incredible finishes, Tom. And every year we say this was the best. We've never had one of these before. We've never had one of these before.
Unbelievable.
Tears of joy on the face of Marc Jones. Gazza-like tears on the face of Lee Thornton. It's okay, son. You're allowed to cry. What does he do now? Does he allow him to stay in the water? Does he try and get him out anyway?
He's fight the fish.
He's still playing.
He'll fight the fish. What he wants to do is land it and hope it's about 2 kilos and not quite 3. He doesn't want it to be 3 kilos because it will be wrist-slitting time.
He's made one mistake today, and that were it.
Yeah.
Do you know what his mistake was? He's used elastic to fish for low weight today, and when he's hooked that fish with a minute to go, it's been too soft to get the fish in. And that's the only mistake he's made.
Well, in the swim, Marc Jones, and you can't deny he's deserved it this afternoon. He has been consistent, he's been slightly controversial in the way that he's fished. Maybe he didn't go with the advice that people were giving him, but there he is, in the swim, with his pals, and what a wonderful afternoon. £25,000 richer.
And just in case you're wondering, Lee Thornton weighed his fish and it came up 300 grams short, but a fabulous second for the youngster from the Fens. A triumph for Marc Jones, 17 kilos 55, over 3 kilos clear of second, with Steve Rothery third and the favourites nowhere, on a day when the famous Hayfield carp proved just too crafty. 3 of the favourites, Kieron, Rich, Phil Ringer and Steve Jackson, way down the list, but Clayton Hudson at least wet his net.
Our fourth prize is the catch of the day. This is for the biggest individual fish caught this afternoon. Our winner receives an engraved cut glass ship's decanter and a cheque for £2,500. The winning fish weighed 4 kilos and 20 grams, and it was caught by Dave SWAIN. And finally, the big one, the ToteSportCasino.com FishOMania 12 champion. He led from the start. He was never caught. The combined weight, 17 kilos 550. Please welcome this year's champion, the FishOMania trophy and a cheque for £25,000, Marc Jones. Ladies and gentlemen, the ToteSportCasino.com FishOMania 12 champion, Marc Jones.
So Marc Jones as champion, Dave Swain with the biggest fish, England international Julie Abbott took the ladies' prize, and Team England junior gold medalist Ricky Hines is junior champion. That's it from Hayfield Lakes and FishOMania 12. See you next time.